Lonely rancher buys woman with sack on her head at station auction. Marries her when she says name. The oppressive heat of a late summer afternoon in Harmony Creek clung to everything, baking the unpaved streets and the tired faces of the town's folk. Dust devils danced aimlessly across the dry plains, mirroring the listlessness in the air. Logan Walker, his weathered Stetson pulled low to shield eyes that had seen too much hard living, stood a little apart from the sparse crowd gathering at the railway station. His ranch, the Lonesome Star, was a 2-day ride east, and the solitude had carved deep lines into his stoic face. He wasn't looking for company, only for the practical necessities that kept his isolated world turning. A new axe head, some seed for the winter wheat. That was the extent of his expectations. The auction began with the usual mundane items: a scrawny mule, a rusted plowshare, a stack of worn saddles. The auctioneer, a corpulent man named Raymond Tucker, with a voice like a bullhorn and an opportunistic gleam in his eye, worked the crowd with practiced ease. But then, a palpable shift in the atmosphere. A murmur rippled through the small assembly as two burly men, grim-faced and impersonal, led out a figure draped entirely in coarse, stained burlap. It was unmistakably a person, small and hesitant. "Next up, folks," Raymond bellowed, his voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. "We have an indentured servant, passage debt to be cleared. Healthy, young, willing to work." A wave of uneasy whispers and averted gazes followed. This was a dark relic of harder times, rarely seen. Logan's jaw tightened. He watched the shrouded figure, motionless, head bowed. There was a vulnerability, a desperate stillness that cut through his usual detachment. He saw the flicker of distaste in the eyes of others, the quick, judgmental glances. Without a conscious thought, driven by an instinct he couldn't name, Logan raised a calloused hand. $50, he said. His voice, usually quiet, cut through the murmuring crowd with an unexpected resonance. Raymond's eyes widened, then gleamed. The bidding was slow, hesitant, mostly from men looking for cheap labor with no real concern. But Logan, for reasons he couldn't articulate, kept raising his bid, his gaze fixed on the motionless, shrouded form. When Raymond finally slammed the gavel, he declared, "Sold, to Mr. Walker." A profound silence fell. Logan had paid an exorbitant sum, far more than anyone expected. The crowd dispersed quickly, leaving him alone on the sun-baked platform with his unexpected, silent acquisition. The woman stood utterly still, a ghost cloaked in burlap. "Come on," Logan muttered, his own voice sounding foreign in his ears, a mixture of command and a strange, hesitant plea. He felt the weight of every judging eye, but he didn't care. He just knew he couldn't leave her there. If you're captivated by this journey into the rugged heart of the Old West and want to see how Logan and this mysterious woman's story unfolds, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Every chapter is part of one epic tale, and you won't want to miss a moment. The journey back to the Lonesome Star Ranch was long and silent. Logan rode ahead, casting occasional glances back at the figure slumped in the wagon, still shrouded. The vast, empty plains stretched out around them, reflecting the emotional landscape within him. What had he done? He, a man who cherished his solitude above all else, had brought a stranger, a woman, into his meticulously ordered, lonely world. Upon reaching the cabin, a small, sturdy structure that had been his sanctuary for years, Logan led her to a spare room. It was stark, clean, holding only a cot, a wash basin, and a single wooden chair. "There's water in the bucket," he said, his voice gruffer than he intended, "and clean clothes on the chair. Food's in the kitchen when you're ready." He avoided looking directly at the sack, feeling an inexplicable awkwardness. He turned to leave, needing the space, the quiet, to process the enormity of his impulsive act. As his hand touched the doorframe, a sound so soft it was almost lost in the creak of the old wood stopped him dead. Logan. It was a whisper, barely audible, yet it resonated through him like the striking of a distant bell. His name, spoken by this unknown woman, shrouded and silent moments ago. A jolt, sharp and electric, shot through him. His heart, usually a steady drum, began to pound. He turned slowly, disbelief warring with a sudden, desperate hope. How do you know my name?" he rasped, the words catching in his throat. A trembling hand, pale and small, reached up, hesitant at first, then determined. Slowly, the course. The burlap was pulled away, revealing not the scarred, broken face Logan half expected, but a face of unexpected, delicate beauty. Though smudged with dirt and streaked with dried tears, her eyes, a startling shade of blue, met his. Intelligent, weary, but with a fierce spark of defiance. Her dark hair, released from the confines of the sack, fell in soft waves around her shoulders. She was young, perhaps in her early 20s, far younger than he had imagined. I saw you at the auction before they put the sack on, she said, her voice still soft but stronger now, without the tremor. I heard them call your name when you bid. You were the only one who didn't look away. Her gaze held his, and in that moment, a profound, undeniable truth passed between them. It wasn't pity he felt now, but a strange, unfamiliar sense of awe. He had bought a woman, yes, but in that shared glance, under the quiet honesty of her eyes, he realized he had stumbled upon something far more complex, something that promised to irrevocably change the lonely landscape of his life. Her name was Eliza. With each passing day, as the initial shock and awkwardness slowly gave way to a fragile routine, fragments of her past began to emerge, not in a flood of confession but in hesitant drops, like water finding its way through parched earth. It wasn't a tale of grand misfortune, but a common, brutal narrative of the West. A family, once prosperous farmers from Kentucky, lured by the promise of fertile lands out west. The journey, however, had been a merciless thief. Drought had ravaged their crops, and then the traveler's fever had claimed her parents within a week of each other, leaving her orphaned and heavily indebted for their passage. The auction, she explained, was her last resort, a desperate, humiliating gamble for survival. Logan listened, his silence a strange, comforting presence. He saw in her eyes the echoes of his own deep-seated losses. His family, too, gone to a similar fever years ago, leaving him with nothing but this ranch and an unbearable solitude. Eliza, despite her quiet demeanor, possessed an incredible, almost fierce resilience. She didn't dwell on her sorrows, nor did she seek pity. Instead, she quietly, methodically began to work. She took to the chores with a surprising natural aptitude. Her small hands, though initially soft, quickly growing capable, then calloused, mirroring his own. She learned to mend fences, to tend the horses, to prepare meals that were simple but nourishing, infusing the cabin with a long-lost sense of home. Their early conversations were strictly practical, functional. The state of the fences, the dwindling feed, the approaching winter. But gradually, imperceptibly, the practical shifted into the personal. Logan found himself sharing anecdotes about the quirks of his cattle, the challenges of coaxing life from the stubborn soil, the small victories earned against the elements. Eliza, in turn, would speak of the subtle shift in the light at dawn, the intricate patterns of clouds before a storm, the unexpected beauty of a wildflower pushing through cracked earth. They were two wounded souls, connected by the raw honesty of shared hardship, slowly, tentatively building a bridge across the vast chasm of their loneliness. The initial strangeness of her presence faded, replaced by a quiet, comforting companionship that began to feel less like a transaction and more like a genuine partnership. Each shared sunrise, each shared meal, each quiet moment of work side by side subtly deepened the unspoken bond between them, laying the foundation for something far beyond the terms of her indenture. The story of Logan and Eliza is just getting started, and the challenges they face are only growing. Don't miss how their bond strengthens against all odds. Subscribe now to catch every new chapter of this compelling Western drama. As the weeks blurred into months, marked by the changing colors of the vast plains, a subtle yet profound transformation began to take root on the Lonesome Star Ranch. Eliza's presence was like a quiet spring rain after a long drought. The cabin, once echoing only with Logan's solitary footsteps, now hummed with a gentle rhythm, the soft clatter of dishes, the faint scent of baking bread, the occasional, almost imperceptible hum of a forgotten tune. She coaxed a small, vibrant garden from the arid soil near the well, a splash of green and color against the endless brown expanse, and the sight of her tending to it, her brow furrowed in gentle concentration, filled Logan with an unfamiliar warmth. The harsh realities of ranch life remained. A sudden, unexpected blizzard threatened the livestock, a vital well began to run dry. A stray pack of wolves circled too close to the corral. But now, Logan faced these relentless obstacles, not alone, but with Eliza by his side. Her quiet determination, her practical suggestions, born of an innate intelligence, and her unwavering presence made the crushing burdens feel strangely lighter. During a particularly fierce winter storm, when the wind howled like a banshee and rattled the cabin's very foundations, they huddled together by the meager fire, sharing a pot of stew. Their hands brushed as they reached for the same utensil, and a silent, profound understanding passed between them. It was a moment of unspoken solace, born not of grand words, but of shared vulnerability and quiet, enduring strength. News of Logan Walker's indentured servant had initially been met with the usual frontier gossip and cynical judgment in Harmony Creek. But as months passed, visitors to the general store or the blacksmith shop, returning from the eastern plains, began to tell different tales. They spoke of a changed Logan, his shoulders less hunched, the perpetual frown easing from his brow. They spoke of Eliza, not as a bought woman, but as a quiet, capable presence, a part of the ranch. She would accompany Logan on supply runs, her gaze steady, meeting the curious stares without a flinch. Their bond, forged in the crucible of hardship and unconventional circumstances, was undeniable. It was a testament to the unexpected ways human connection could bloom, even in the most unforgiving, isolated corners of the American West, slowly transforming two individual solitudes into a shared existence. The golden light of a late autumn evening cast long shadows across the dusty ranch yard as Logan found Eliza sitting on the cabin's small porch. She was watching the sun dip below the distant horizon, painting the vast western sky in breathtaking hues of orange, purple, and deep crimson. He walked over, the familiar creak of the porch swing welcoming him, and sat beside her, the comfortable silence between them thicker, more meaningful than any words. "Eliza," he began, his voice a little rough, unpracticed in declarations of the heart. I know this wasn't how you imagined your life turning out. Being bought." The words still tasted bitter on his tongue. She turned to him, her eyes clear and deep, reflecting the last embers of the sunset. A gentle, knowing smile touched her lips. "No," she admitted softly, her voice barely a whisper against the vastness of the plains. "It wasn't what I imagined," she continued, her voice steady. "But sometimes, Logan, what you don't imagine is exactly what you need." She paused, her gaze drifting back to the horizon. You didn't just give me shelter. You gave me a chance when I had none. You gave me back my dignity." Her voice held a quiet conviction that resonated deep within him. He looked at her then, truly looked, past the initial circumstances, past the quiet competence, past the shared chores. He saw the strength in her delicate features, the kindness in her weary eyes, and the profound spirit that had unknowingly breathed new life into his own desolate existence. The unspoken loneliness that had been his constant companion for so long began to recede, replaced by a feeling of profound connection, something he never thought possible. He took a deep, shaky breath, the words forming slowly, deliberately in his mind. "Eliza," he said, his voice gaining strength as he reached for her hand, his calloused fingers gently enclosing hers. "I know the terms were, I bought you, but I want to marry you, not because of any debt or obligation or pity, but because, Eliza, because I can't imagine this life, my life, without you in it anymore." A slow, radiant smile spread across her face, a beautiful, genuine light that seemed to banish the last shadows from the landscape. Tears welled in her blue eyes, not of sorrow, but of profound, overwhelming joy. She squeezed his hand, her gaze locked with his. "Yes, Logan," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Under the boundless, starlit canvas of the American West, two solitary souls, brought together by an unlikely, almost fantastical turn of fate, found their true home in each other. Their story, born of desperation and an unconventional beginning, transformed into a powerful testament to resilience, the quiet strength of human connection, and the unexpected, enduring ways love can blossom in the most unforgiving of landscapes. The lonely rancher and the woman who once whispered his name through burlap had finally found their horizon together, ready to face whatever the West had in store.